Welcome to Poker Log number 36. Today is a Monday that usually I don't play, but I can't play on Saturday, so we'll do it today. And I'm vlogging because I just had a feeling. Sometimes I have feelings and I'm in a mood, so hopefully it is right. So the last 3 vlogs haven't been the best, down on all of them. Not too much, thankfully, though. And updates, not the best week. We were down last week, not too much, though. I think like 1,000, something around that area, but we're still doing great for the month. And already above my monthly goals, so definitely amazing. Hopefully we can do pretty good this next week to build our bankroll. And with that said, let's head in and play some poker. All right, if you see my vlogs before, you know the drill. We head into the poker room, start with 1-3 until a 2-5 opens. So we buy for $300, extra 2 that hopefully you don't have to use since to add on if we go under 300. Let's jump right into the first hand. We get some really good news since this 1-3 table looks amazing. The straddle is going on very often, and to show you how good it is, let's jump into this first hand. We're in under than 1 with ace-3 suited. Under than limp straddle is going on, so I make it $25, and I get the hijack button and under the guy in the call, so 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 3, 8, jack, so bottom pair, 4 ways. I'm not betting this, so when they check to me, I check and it checks around. Turn is a 7. Now undergun bets, but just $20, so yeah, my 3s are probably not good here, but under the gun, he's been drinking and he's just been talking and splashing and going absolutely crazy. So for 20% pot with my bottom pair, I'm probably not good, but again, it's 20%, so I do put in the call, and so does the button. So 3 ways to a river. River is a 4. Now under the gun just rips it all in for $150. So yeah, he may be action, but bottom pair, and with the button calling, I just don't think I could call here. So I do fold, so does the button, and under the gun flips over king 9 off for absolutely nothing. He didn't have any draw, just a ballsy bluff that gets through, and now you know how good this table is. So let's move on to the next hand. Now on the button with the beautiful pocket queens. Straddle is going on. Under than 1 makes it $15. Cut off calls, so 3 betting. I make it 60, and only under than 1 calls, so heads up to a flop. Flop is not what we are hoping for. 7, A6, so overcard to a pocket pair, and things get even worse since under than 1 leads out all in, but just $78, so less than pot onto us. And this was so strange since I have all of the strong aces. 3 betting pre-flop, so definitely looks strong, but I just wasn't expecting strong hands to just donk here since I think it looks pretty strong. So why would they do that when there's no flush draw on the board? And I go into the tank and I tell him I have pocket queens, and he flips over one of his cards that's a 7. So I really was considering folding until that. And I was trying to think, why is he showing me a card? Maybe he thought it looked strong if he showed me a 7, as if he had pocket 7s or 2 pair, trying to get me to fold my queen. End of the day, less than pot, and the chance that maybe he just jammed with second pair, just thinking he's not going to fold anyways. So like that, he doesn't give overcards a free turn. I put in the call, and we see the bad news when his other card is an ace. So we flop top 2 and decide to donk all in. That works out pretty well for him since I do call. So we got 2 outs. Let's see if we can hit him. Turn is an 8. River is a jack. So no luck for us. He'll take it down with flop 2 pair. So just like that, we're down $200. So we add on to get back at the max. That's $300, and no worries. Super action table. Things that turn around pretty quickly. So let's just focus, be patient, and move on to the next hand. Now we're the one straddling and under the gun. We looked on a queen 8 off. Under than 2 and hijack limps. Big blind calls and happy checking here, so let's see a flop. Flop comes queen jack 6, so pretty good top pair, but with the 8 kickers, so multi-way, especially limpers could have a lot of queens with better kickers. I decided to pot control and check, and it checks around. Turn is another 6. Now the big line bets $15, but this is the player from the first hand, the very action one that's drinking, so sure he could have a 6, but I think he'd have plenty of other random hands that are just betting since it checked around. So I call, and so does under the gun too. So 3 ways to a river. River is pretty good. It's another 6, so 3 on board. Way less likely big blind has one, but now he bets $20 and definitely felt pretty weak. I mean, I feel like even if he has a queen, he'll be betting bigger than this, but it did seem like he was trying to get the showdown. So I just felt like he had a hand, and this player, I don't know if he's folding, so Let's give him a good price. I click it back to $40. Other than 2 folds. Back to the big blind who does call. We show and we are not chopping since our full house is better than his since he says he has a jack and mucks. So first win of the session. Let's keep it going. We change seat to get a better view at the table when we look down at pocket sevens and under the gun straddle. There's 4 limpers, so I make it $45. Under the 1 calls. And now the hijack does the dreaded limp 3-bet to $225 onto us. And this player, he seems very action as well, but a limp 3-bet just looks so damn strong, just better pocket pairs than ours. So it just feels best case scenario we're flipping. So I just fold. So does under than 1. He later said he had pocket kings. I believe just limp 3-bets are so nutted. So hopefully we don't get limp 3-bet in this next one. We looked on an ace 9 suited in under than 1. I make it $12 and get 5 callers. So that's, I guess, one of the downsides of a super action table. You just end up going crazy multi-way. That's definitely just got to play pretty straight up. Hopefully we could hit. Let's see the flop. Flop comes Jack 7-3. So backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw. I definitely consider betting here if you were going heads up of 3 ways. But 6 ways, I'm playing straight up. I check and it checks around. Turn gives us some hope though, and it's a jack of clubs. So we have the nut flush on a paired board. Now the big blind bet $17. So getting a great price to try to hit our draw. I call, everybody else folds. So heads out to a river. River is beautiful, a 5 of clubs. So we have the nut flush and now he checks onto us. And him betting the turn definitely looked pretty strong. So multi-way. So I think he could have plenty of jacks. And even if the flush comes in, I really didn't think he was going to fold to a bet. Especially when he bets so small on the turn. I could just be floating with plenty of hands. So in a spot that I don't think he's going to ever fold trips, let's bet big. I make it $90. He thinks for a little bit, but sadly does end up folding. So I'm guessing he did not have a jack, his second pair. I mean, maybe he did fold when the flush comes in. People do get scared of the flush. So hopefully he did not fold trips since that would be a disaster. And we take it down. On to the last hand of 1-3. We looked at a king 10 off in the big blind. There's 4 limpers onto us and suited version definitely raising. And maybe if it was a game that people will limp folding, but these players, I just don't think they're folding to my raise. I don't want to make a huge pot with not that strong of a hand out of position. So I just check and see a free flop. And if only I knew the future, I would have raised. And the flop comes king 10-8. We flop top 2. And some multi-way, I definitely think someone is very likely going to bet with top pair. We could go for a check raise and a pretty draw heavy board. So that is what I do. And we see the good news that other than 2 does bet. That is the drunk action player. He makes it $20. Folds back to us and definitely not slow playing with so many draws on the board. I check raises in the 60. Folds to him. And sadly, he just shows 10-9. For a second pair and folds, and we take down this last pot of 1-3, end up down just $40. That's not that bad since at the low point we were down over 200. I'll take it. Let's rack up, head over to the 2-5, add on to be at $1,000 and jump right into the first hand. Straddle is going on. We're looking at ace queen off in under than 2. I make it $30 and only get the hijack to call, so heads up to a flop. Flop is pretty good. Ace jack 8, so top pair, queen kicker, good enough to bet, so I make it $25 and the hijack calls. Turn is beautiful. It's a queen, so we have top 2, king 10 and 10-9 is a straight, but we have a very strong hand that can get value from plenty of worse. So I make it $90, but doesn't seem like he has nothing that strong since he does fold and we take down the first hand at 2-5. Now we got jack 10 suited in a button. Hijack makes it 15. I call and so does the small blind. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is very promising. Ace queen 9. We flop a straight flush draw. Choice to the hijack who c-bets for $20. I consider raising with such a strong draw, but in the moment the small blind is very action as well. And if he has an ace or some pair, I want to keep him in case I do hit my draw. I could get value from both of them. So with the plan of maybe going aggressive on a turn or river, I decided to call, and so does the small blind. So 3 ways to a turn. Turn is not what we're hoping for. It's another 9. So the board is paired, not what you want when you have a flush straight draw. And things get interesting since the small blind leads out for $100. So basically pot. Hijack folds onto us, and I was considering raising the turn, turning my hand into bluff if I miss, but This looks so strong. He bets pot when the board is paired. It just seems like he doesn't want to get check around. Very likely a 9, and I don't think I'm going to get that to fold. So we got plenty of outs. Hopefully we could hit one. I call. And indeed we do. River is a 4 of hearts. We hit our flush. Now a small blind slows down and checks. And let's get some value. I don't want to go too big since it just looks like we have a flush, and I don't want to start folding his trips. I'm going to make it 150, and he snap calls before I even finish to put out the money. So if you are a player, do not do this, because I could take advantage and say 500 because I hadn't not finished doing my bet, or if I was bluffing, I could literally just put 25. So I'm not going to be an ass. I just put the money I was planning on putting, and he flips over ace-7. So he had top pair. His kicker wasn't even in play. So I was definitely expecting a stronger hand, for sure a 9 after he bets pot on a turn and then snap calls the river. But good to know. We'll keep that in mind in future hands, and we take it down with a flush. Definitely a nice start in the 2-5 streets. Let's see if we can keep it going with ace jack off in under gun 2. I'm gonna get $15, and I get the hijack and big blind to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes king jack 6. So middle pair ace kicker, not the worst, but with a hijack that flat called after me, that definitely think he could have kings. When it checks to me, I check, and we should have good news when he checks back. Turn is a 7. When it checks again to me, I think now we could get some value. If they had a king, I think they would have bet the flop or the big blind to turn, and now there's flush draws and some straight draws. So I make it $20 and only get the hijack to call. Big blind folds, so heads up to river. River's another 7 that I definitely think you could have, that just checks the flop and then calls a small bet on the turn when he hits a pair. So with that in mind, and there's a good amount of missed draws that maybe turn into a bluff, I decide to check, planning on calling. Since I think I'm mostly good here, I probably always bets a king on a flop. So that's the plan. I check, and he does bet. He makes it $50. As I said, I put in the call, and I'm very surprised when I see he flips over pocket queens. So that was definitely not a hand I even thought about, since I was expecting it to 3-bet pre-flop. But hey, works out for him this time. He takes it down. Now in under gun 1 with 10-9 suited, I make it $15. You get the low jack cutoff and big blind to call. So 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 5 jack jack. So 4 ways. I'm done with my hand. So I check. But funny thing happens, since it checks around. Turn is a 7. Checks around. River is a 4. Checks around. I show, and somehow 4 ways, my 10 high is good. So I was definitely not expecting that. Thankfully we didn't muck, and we take down this 4-way pot with 10 high. After that monster hand, we see the beautiful pocket aces in the button, best possible spot, and things get better. Since there's 2 limpers, I make it $30, and the big blind 3 bets to 120. But wait, it gets better. 1 limper folds, but now to hijack a crazy action player. This guy is one of the biggest maniacs I've ever played against. Flat calls. So I gotta say, this is just a dream spot. You don't get these often, so you gotta enjoy them. Let's 4-bet. I make it $450. The big blind goes in the tank. This is the one that flatted with queens in the other hand. And finally, sadly, folds, but the hijack does not disappoint. After limping, he calls my 4-bet. So here we go against the maniac. Heads up in a 4-way pot. As if things weren't crazy enough, flop comes ace 8-9. We flop the nuts, top set in a 4-bet pot against a maniac. Honestly, this just feels like a dream. But it could be bittersweet, since maybe if you had a smaller pocket pair, he's just gonna fold. But let's try to get some value. When he checks, I bet $225. And if you were in a dream, what do you think would happen? Indeed, he rips it all in. That is $630. I call, I tell him I have top set and ask him if he wants to run it twice. I usually do this in big pots. He agrees, so let's see the runouts. First runout comes a 4 and a 3, so always nice. He doesn't have to show. We got the nuts. That is definitely ours. And second is not a threat either, since the turn is a 9. We got a full house. River's a 3, and he just mucks. And just like that, over 2K pot coming our way. Definitely running very hot in 2-5. Let's try to keep it going. Now in under gun 1 with ace-7 suited. I make it $15, and I get the low jack button to call. Now the big blind, the maniac of the previous hand, 3 bets is 75. And usually I'm just folding here, but this player, he is so action. I definitely think he'd be doing this wide. Suited ace in position. Let's do it. I call, but things do not go as hoped. So low jack, who just called my raise, makes it $400. Folds to a big blind who rips it all in. So yeah, there goes $75. I fold. Low jack ended up having pocket queens. So seems like he likes the flat with queens against my raises since it's the same player that did it last time. And the big blind had pocket jacks. Moving on. For this next one, a button straddle is going on. We're looking at ace queen off in a big blind. Hijack limp, so I make it $50 and get the button and hijack to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes jack, king, ace. So pretty good. Top pair, queen kicker, and a gut shot. So let's see a bit. I make it $50. Hijack folds, but the button does not. He raises to 150. This is the maniac, so sure, he could be ahead of us, but with top pair and a gut shot, I'm not going anywhere. I call. Our worries of being behind are gone when the turn is at 10, so we hit our gut shot. We got the nuts. We check, and he does not slow down. He bets $405, and he just had 400 behind, and it kind of felt like he was just committing his stack. Maybe he's just going completely out of his mind and he's going to fold. But I just felt like it could be he had 2 pairs, maybe turn a flush draw. And if he did have something like that, I do not think he's folding. So I decided to rip it all in for his other 400. He calls. River is a jack. So hopefully he didn't have a set or 2 pair, but he did not. He has queen 4 off. So yeah, he had a gut shot and turned that into a bluff and hit the turn just like I did, and we'll chop it up. Now I'm going to cut off with queen jack suited. Under than 2 limps, so I make it $20 and get the small blind and limper to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes jack, ace, 9. So decent middle pair, queen kicker. When it checks to us, both the small blind, I think is playing pretty wide, and the limper, I think my jack is good a decent amount of time. So let's bet. I make it $20 and they both call. Turn is a deuce. They check to me, and yeah, after getting 2 callers on the flop, I definitely think betting the turn with middle pair queen kicker will be a little too thin, so I check back. River is pretty nice. Another ace, so less likely they have one, and even less when once again it checks to us. And this is a spot I think people check back a lot, but I think we got to try to go thin for value. And here, I don't think they ever have aces. I think they're mostly betting. Maybe, sure, we could bet, and maybe they have a baby ace that's just going in check calling mode, or king jack. But when you go thin for value, if you're always good, you're not going thin enough. So let's do it. I make it $30. I don't want to make it big since I am trying to get called by pretty weak hands. Small blind folds, but under than 2 does call. We show, and we are indeed good against pocket 6s. So going thin for value works out for us this time. Let's go back to the premium pocket kings and under the gun. I make it $15, get 3 callers, and once again a dream. Big blind the maniac makes it 75 onto us, and usually I'd make this not too big, like probably 200 being in position, but against this player, he 3-bets, he never folds. I'm just going to make it way bigger since I do not think he's folding. I make it $300. Folds back to him, and indeed, he does not disappoint. He does call, so heads up to a flop. But this time, we do not see a good flop. It comes 4-7 ace, so nightmare for pocket kings. 4-bet pot, ace on the flop. But when he checks in a 4-bet pot, ace high board, I'm just always going to put down a c-bet. Couple of reasons. I do think we could still be ahead of plenty of pocket pairs, and this player, I think he'd have a lot of random suited connected hands. If we check back, I think it's pretty obvious we do not have an ace, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just goes crazy and bets turn and river huge, just trying to get us off of what's pretty obvious, this pocket pairs that are scared of an ace. So let's not let that happen. I make it $150 and he calls. Turn is a 10. He checks, and I do not want to put more money in this pot with my pocket king, so I check back. River is an 8, and I'm just thinking, please check. Please check. If he bets here, especially big, it's definitely going to be a nightmare spot. And he does check, And I think betting here may be a little too thin since I do think he may still have some weak aces. Could be very likely that smaller pocket pairs, but I was a little worried if I put a small bet that looks like I'm going thin for value. If he just has random hands that he doesn't think are good for showdown, he is very aggressive, and I do think he'll turn him into a bluff and check raise me. So that'd definitely be a pretty shitty spot if I get check raised. So I just go to showdown, I check back, and we show our pocket kings, and they are indeed good. So definitely great news for Bipar ace high board, and our kings are good. We take down another pretty decent pot against the maniac. No premium for this next one. King queen off and under the gun, and make it $15 and get under the gun 2 button, small blind, and big blind to call. So 5 ways to a flop. Flop is decent, 8-7 king, so top pair queen kicker, but definitely scary 5 ways. When it checks to us, I put out a bet and I'll make it too big, and I think people play pretty straight up. So if someone raises, I think we just start letting it go, depending on the player, of course. If it's a maniac, probably not. So I make it $40, and I get under the gun 2 button, small blind to call. Now the big blind makes it $400. And this is not the maniac. This is a reg that is pretty tight. So I am not calling such a huge raise against this player, which is top pair queen kicker. Sure, there's a lot of draws, but I think he's mostly calling with all this action with a draw. This just looks like 2 pairs sets. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he calls sometimes with the smaller 2 pairs like 8-7. My guess is most likely a set like 7 or 8s. And yeah, I'm not calling such a huge raise with my top pair queen kicker, so I do fold. Let's play another super multi-way pot. We're looking at ace king off and under the gun 1. Straddle is going on, so I make it $30. I get under the gun 2, hijack, cutoff, button, big blind, and under the gun to call. So almost family pot, 7 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen 9-5, so we do not hit. And so crazy multi-way. When it checks to me, I check and it checks around. Turn is interesting. It's a king, so top pair, top kicker, but 7 ways. We're losing gets a good amount of hands. So when under the gun bet's $80, I'm definitely not loving it. I was really considering just folding, but under the gun is the maniac, so I think he'd just be going pretty crazy with a lot of hands. So I do call, and things don't go great since it folds to the hijack, who rips it all in for $600. And this player is pretty tight, so this is always value for what I am used to seeing from him. Under the gun, everybody folds, including under the gun, and so do I. This just looks like jack 10. But when everybody folds, he flips over ace king as well. So I was in shock. I didn't want to call with ace king. I wasn't happy about it, and this guy ripped it all in. Definitely, in my point of view, a crazy overplay. Just, I do think, even though he was going for value, that is just a bluff since he's only getting called by better, but works out for him this time since he does get me off of a chop and he takes it down. Now we're in the big blind with ace 3 suited. There's 4 limpers, and definitely in a regular game that people sometimes limp and fold. A lot of dead money at very likely raise, but in this game, nobody is limping to fold. So if I raise here, I just think they're all going to call. I'm going to play a huge pot out of position with a pretty weak ace. So I'm just happy seeing a cheap flop, well, a free flop for me. I check, let's see the flop. Flop is promising king 6 deuce, so nut flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and an overcard. I check, under the 1 bets $10, cutoff calls, and I think it's a pretty good candidate to check raise, and I'm in the big blind. I could have all the 2 pairs and some sets, so let's do it. I would get $40 and only under than 1 call, so heads up to a turn. And with how well we're running today, no need to bluff. Turn is a 4 of diamonds. We've got the nuts after check raising the flop. Now let's go for value. I make it $100. This is the player that called me at the beginning of the session with ace 7, so I know he could be sticky. Hopefully he does this time, and it's looking good since once again he calls. River is an ace. That not the best. If he had top pair, he may get scared, but this player, let's just try to get max value. Hopefully he just doesn't want to fold. I make it $225. He does not look happy. He keeps on saying that this looks like I have a flush, and finally does call We show, and of course we are good. He said that he had a smaller flush, so if that's the case, definitely pretty nasty for him. And we take it down. Things get crazy now since the Maniac lost some pots and now it just has a $350 stack and is going all in blind. So let's see if we get a good hand to be able to call. Nope. We look down at 10-4 off, so not even close. We fold, but crazy thing is that he gets two callers, ends up having pocket deuces, and hitting a full house. So definitely great news. The Maniac once again has a decent stack. Now I look down at pocket jacks and under in one. I make it $15. I get the low jack and big blind to call. Big blind being the Maniac. Now comes deuce, 9, queen. So I guess not the worst. This one overcard to a pocket jacks. And when it checks to me, both the big blind and low jack, I think it could be very wide. And the jacks could very likely be good. So I bet $20. And they both call. Turn is a 4. Big blind checks, and with two callers, I'm just happy to get the showdown. I check, and so does the low jack. River is a 6, and I was planning on calling a lot against the big blind since he has the Maniac, and after we both check, I think he'll be bluffing a lot. But he makes it $400. What the hell is that size? That is the hugest size I've seen probably ever compared to the size of the pot. So yeah, I don't care. He's a Maniac. I'm not calling for that price. I fold. The low jack snap calls though, and the Maniac flips over queen 4 for turn 2 pair. So indeed, good thing we did not go crazy and hero called because the jacks were way behind, and the Maniac will take down this decent sized pot. Now the Maniac decides to once again go all in blind, but this time for $850. So first time I've ever seen someone go all in blind for almost 200 big blinds. So let's see if we could get a hand to call with. Nope. King deuce suited, so definitely better than 10-4 off, but even less happy about it when the cutoff calls and this player is pretty tight. So of course I'm just folding, and it's pretty bad news since the cutoff had pocket queens and they do hold, and the Maniac leaves after this hand. But at least he was here most of the time since we move on now to the last hand of the session. We look down at pocket 7s and under the gun. I make it $15. Now under the 1 3 bets to 50. Under the 2 calls. So definitely early against early. This 3-bet looks really strong, but even with a caller behind, we're deep. We're getting a great price to set mine. But when there's no 7 on the flop, I check and he c-bets $80 and the next player calls. I just fold, and with that, we will end our session. That was definitely above average. It's always nice to run good for the vlog and get a lot of action. So let's rack up, cash out, and see how we did. Let's go. Vlogging sense is on point. So nice. Yeah, this was just a super sun run of a session. So action. It was definitely way above average. That's very nice. And especially very nice after last week. That was really rough since we ended up down 1,000. And it kind of got to me. And it had to do with the last 3 months. I was up a decent amount, like halfway through, about what I want for the month, and in the end where I would just get hit. So it was the 3rd month in a row that I was doing really good, and then I just was getting hit pretty hard because I was down like 2,000 at a point mid last week. Thankfully at the end I did better. So it definitely got to me a little bit. So it feels great. Just these last 2 sessions really good. Just last one I won like 500, and today a lot better since we were in for 1,100, out for $29.35 for a profit of $1,835. And let's go. It's been a while since we have a big win for the vlog. Last 3 were down, so that's great as well. And yeah, just running amazing. You know, we hit our flushes most of the times. Just the one with the aces with that guy that just wouldn't fold pre-flop, and we just flop top set. And the kings, thankfully he didn't have an ace. And yeah, altogether happy with how I played. Just everything seemed to be going our way, and we didn't lose any big pots. So that's the dream of a session, having such an action one and running good. And yeah, that is about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As usual, if you can like, subscribe, and leave a comment, always happy to talk about hands. And I'll see you all next week.